Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Read With Me. I hope you all are doing really well. Today I have come with the last short story from this collection 3000 Stitches, which is written by Sudha Murty. So let's start. I can't, we can. Recently I attended a nephew's wedding. It was a wonderful occasion to meet my cousins whom I had spent my childhood with but hadn't met in a long time. The wedding ceremony began, and a few cousins and I sat leisurely in a corner. One of my cousins said, I am the president of the laughing club in our community. Come for one of our sessions. We hardly meet anymore. This way, I will at least get to see you for some time. It is common now to see older men and women gather in parks in the morning and attempt to laugh. Ha ha ha. I have often wondered how people can make themselves laugh in this manner. I visualized myself attending such an assembly. What would I talk to them about? I was absolutely clueless, and so I politely declined. Another cousin said, I am the secretary of the Housewives Association in my apartment community. I have already shared with the members that you are my cousin. You must come and address them. But what is the subject matter that you are interested in? You are a wise investor, so give the women tips on how to save and identify high return investments like you have. I'm not sure I understand. Can you elaborate a little on that? Well, everybody knows how you invested 10,000 rupees in Infosys and made millions in return. I didn't do that for the sake of investment, I said in a serious tone. I gave the seed money to fulfill my husband's dream, a dream that was considered impractical in those days. He is successful now, and that's why you are referring to me as a wise millionaire. Had he not been so, you would have called the same move a foolish one. You have it all wrong. I am not the right person to talk about investment. Instead, you can ask me for advice on how to spend money. That will be more suited to my skills. People around me laughed. I have a special request, a third cousin said. She began, my friend's daughter is a bright student, and is she planning to apply for a job at Infosys? I interrupted her because I really can't. Have some patience, she stopped me. Let me finish. I thought you would have garnered a lot more patience by now, considering your line of work. The girl wants your guidance. She already has a job offer as well as an admission letter from an American university and needs to pick one. There is not much guidance I can give. The decision depends on the family's financial position, the girl's ambition, and her career plans, along with other social aspects of the family. Come on, meet her. She really needs your help. I was reluctant, but I said, okay, ask her to meet me tomorrow at 9 a.m. She can come to my office. The next morning, I met petite girl named Jaya. She was shy and quite nervous. I wanted to make her comfortable, so I told her to sit down and offered her a cup of tea. Then I asked for her mark sheet. Her academic record was outstanding. Jaya, what is on your mind? I did not beat around the bush. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? She was quiet. I rephrased my question. Perhaps you want to be a corporate professional or pursue the academic line, or maybe something else. Still, there was no reply. Are you scared of me? Do I look like a monster? I persisted and smiled. She smiled back and shook her head. Then she began speaking very softly about her future plans. I could see that she didn't have any confidence despite her achievements. Jaya, academic excellence is not everything, I said. You must have confidence in yourself. One of the flaws of our education system is that it doesn't really teach us that quality. Our parents, society, and the recruitment process concentrate too much on the marks we get. I can give you many examples of people who may not have studied much but have done well for themselves because they believed they could. Confidence does not mean that everything will go our way. It simply gives us the ability to accept failures that we will inevitably meet on our path and move forward with hope. Without any warning, Jaya started sobbing like a toddler. It was heartbreaking. At first, I was startled. Maybe I have given her too strong a dose without knowing her nature. I thought. In India, most of us excel at giving advice without people asking for it, and I am no exception. I offered her a tissue and said, I'm sorry if I have hurt you, Jaya, but I don't know what to tell you. You are not sharing much with me. The girl calmed down and wiped her tears. Her voice was shaking when she spoke. No, ma'am, your advice didn't make me cry. The truth is that I feel inferior in front of most people. Why? Anyone in your shoes would have proud of accomplishing so much at your age. She paused. Then she said, Ma'am, my father was an alcoholic. I paused. She spoke a little more fluently. He is now in AA, but my younger years were different. He would often get drunk and abuse my mother. She went through so much, and I had no idea what I could do to help her. I grew up scared of my father's temper and in an unhappy and tense atmosphere. Then I thought that the only way I could make a change was to study hard and get a decent job so that I could take my mother and leave. I have a sister too, but my mother doesn't want to leave the family home. She is worried about. I think I can understand your mother's concerns. Many in our society still judge women who are separated from their husbands, and she is probably concerned about how that might impact her daughter's marriage prospects. You are right, ma'am. She says that I should go abroad and never come back to India. She wants me to get married to a good man, irrespective of his caste and creed. Her only condition is that he must not drink. But I don't want to run away and leave my mother and sister behind. I want to be here for them. I'm so confused, ma'am. That's the reason why I wanted your advice. The word AA was on my mind. What is AA? I asked. Alcoholics Anonymous. It is a support group for men and women who are addicted to alcohol. It has taken my father several years to become sober, but the darkness he caused has left a permanent scar on my heart and life. I don't like to share anything personal with him, nor do I ask him for advice. I have no respect for him at all. Jaya, I don't know much about AA, but we don't know the circumstances under which he turned to the bottle. He has changed now, and it sounds like he is trying hard to be a better man. The best way forward is not to get upset or run away from your problems, but to open a channel of conversation with him. Your father must regret the actions of his past. Is he nice to you, mother, now? Of course, he has been very good to her since he became sober. I sensed that she was feeling better. Jaya, go to a counselor with him and work things out. Having a third party helps in seeing things clearer. You can defer your admission from a year or and start working here. After the time has passed, reevaluate your life by yourself on with the help of a counselor, and you will make the right decision. In a lifespan of many years, you can take time off for a year to figure out what's good for you. It is worth it. She smiled and her eyes shone brightly. She thanked me and left. That day, my thoughts were preoccupied with AA. At the foundation, we are already, predisposed to reaching out to people in tough situations. Dharma on its own also means protecting someone who needs it, no matter who they are or where they come from. It is pure and simple, and my mind wouldn't rest easy. Besides, we had never worked on this problem before, and I had to understand it first. I got some information on AA online, but it wasn't sufficient. Multiple questions bounced around in my head. What was it, and how did it really play a role in an alcoholic's life? What challenges does he or she face? Was it hereditary? Does one's financial status or family make a difference? How does counseling help? What is the success rate of de addiction, and where does a person go on from there? It was clear I needed first hand information. I wanted to meet someone to understand the problem a little better. Vaguely, I recalled a friend mentioning in passing many years ago that her son in law had been a victim of this. I hadn't been good at keeping in touch and wondered if he would speak to me about it. I took a chance, picked up the phone, and reached out to my friend. I was hesitant. When she came on the line, we chatted for a few minutes and tried to catch up on the time gone by. Finally, I asked her, several years ago, you had told me about your son in law, Ramesh, and that he had gone to a de addiction camp. How is he doing now? With God's grace and with the help of AA, he is sober now and lives a good life. Would he mind if I asked him a few questions about the group? Only if he wants to, of course. I can assure you that it will remain confidential. Sure, I will talk to him about it. I will message you his number if he agrees, said my friend. Thank you. Within 10 minutes, I received his contact details and immediately called him. The man on the other side of the phone sounded like he was around 40 years old. Auntie, said Ramesh, his voice full of warmth, I am happy to know that you want to hear about AA. I will share my journey with you and you can write about it too if you like. It will be worth it even if one person learns from my mistakes. Why don't you come over for a meal? We can speak leisurely then, I suggested. Soon we decided to meet in my house for lunch. He was on time and confident in his demeanor. We sat down at the table. There was no need for polite conversations or formalities. Tell me about your experience with AA. I actually broached the subject without beating around the bush. I have read your book titled The Day I Spotted Drinking Milk. But if I had to write one, it would be called The Day I Began Drinking Alcohol. He shied. Let me tell you how it all began. I belong to a conservative family. As children, we were expected to be home by sunset and were not allowed even tea or coffee. The only liquids I was allowed were milk, water, and tirtha, holy water. I was an excellent student and finished my 12th grade with outstanding marks. A few days later, some of my classmates and I decided to celebrate. We went to a restaurant and ordered a round of drinks. I had never tried alcohol before, and it was a close friend, a coffee planter's son from Coorg, who urged me on. Come on, have a drink. Social drinking is quite acceptable now, and it does absolutely no harm. One or two drinks will make you happier than the high you must have got from your top marks. Take this, he said, and handed me a peg of whiskey with ice cubes. Most of us were first timers. Though the taste of the drink was slightly bitter, we all drank and felt good and relaxed. For some time, I felt that I was floating on air. The music was good and the world around me seemed beautiful, and I had a nice buzz. I liked it. The evening turned into night and we ordered dinner. Though I was a foodie then, I didn't feel like eating anything. Instead, I quietly went to the bar and took a second peg. Everyone at the table clapped. You were so cautious first, but look at you now. The night ended on a high note and my friend dropped me home in his car. Since it was late, my parents were already asleep. So I used my key to enter the house and crashed on the bed. The next morning, I didn't stir until 7:30 a.m. When I opened my eyes, the sun's rays were shining brightly through the window. It was late. I usually woke up at 6 a.m. When my mother saw me, she asked, Are you unwell? I shook my head, but my head was feeling heavy and I had a slight headache. How was the party? It was fine. I headed to the bathroom for a shower and felt slightly better. I went about my routine, and at the end of the day, I thought about alcohol. I was fascinated by the high it had brought me. A few days later, I wanted to drink again and called my friend. He laughed and said, No problem, man, let's have another party. This time it was only the two of us. My friend taught me about the different kinds of alcohol, the qualities and the prices as I eagerly waited my peg. Wait, we began meeting regularly, and without realizing it, I got addicted to alcohol and began yearning for it every day. A month later, I got admission in a college in Mumbai and left home. Now I had complete freedom and there was absolutely no one to control me. I began boozing with different classmates. Somehow I still managed to get decent grade despite bunking classes, either due to hangovers or because I had slept late the previous night. I even got a good job that paid me well. Unfortunately for me, it also meant that I began drinking more since I could afford more. A few years later, I was transferred to Bangalore. By then, my parents had built another house on the floor upstairs, and I told them that I would like to stay there. I had an arranged marriage and the girl was very nice, but once my wife began living with me, she learnt of my addiction within a few days. Livid, she fought with my poor parents, thinking that they were aware of my alcoholism and had chosen to hide it from her. My mother was horrified. She had had no knowledge of my addiction. The only symptom she was aware of was that I had become short-tempered, but she had innocently attributed it to the stress at my workplace. I had, of course, let her think that way. So, along with my wife, I got a sermon every day, and it greatly annoyed me. She dragged me to temples and gurus. The more they pushed me, the more upset I became. Through it all, my wife continued to believe in me. You are intelligent, she would say. You can leave this habit. I know you can control your urges. Sometimes her words gave me strength, but I couldn't let go of alcohol. I was dumbfounded. This could happen to anyone, especially in this day and age. I stopped him. Tell me, how did you find out about AA? Now you must understand my journey, Auntie. Day after day, it became worse, and I kept drowning in the problem that I had created. One day, I got a call from my old friend from Coorg. He was visiting Bangalore with his cousin and invited me to his hotel. I was happy to hear from him and thought that we could have a memorable evening together. When I eventually saw him, I was concerned. The young, handsome boy looked like an old man and a skeleton at that. Shall we order something to drink? I asked a few minutes into our meeting. Don't even mention the word alcohol. It is killing me. For a long time, I refused to get married. My parents tried their best to rescue me from this life, but now I have been diagnosed with liver cirrhosis. I can't tell you how much I regret the past. I was born into a good family and grew up in a wonderful place like Coorg where I could have done something meaningful. People always plan a holiday there, and I already live in a heaven. I should have become high on nature, but instead I became high on alcohol. I don't have much time left. Don't waste your life, old friend. Learn from me. A man near his death will always tell you the bare truth. This disease is worse than cancer. People will sympathize with you if you have cancer, and there are medicines and surgeries that might give you a chance to get back to your life. But here I am. This is what rock bottom looks like. People look down on me and judge me, even my parents. I thank God that I am not married, or I would have ruined another person's life too. His words threw me for a loop. How could this have happened to him? This isn't how life is supposed to turn out for people like us. I came home and tossed and turned all night. I couldn't stop thinking about him or myself. My life was a mess. Sometimes I would skip work because I had drunk too much the previous day. People who were less smart than me were getting promoted, and I was being passed over again and again because I wasn't considered reliable enough. Meanwhile, my wife and mother were under our relatives' constant scrutiny because of my condition. It was plain as day. I wasn't that far off from being in the same boat as my friend. The very idea shook me to the core. The next morning, there was a call from my friend's hotel. It was his cousin. Your friend passed away last night, he said. You were his last visitor. I began trembling with shock and fear. It was the lowest point of my life, and I couldn't control my body from shivering. When the shivers stopped, I went to the small containing all the alcohol, took the bottles and threw them in the trash. With the help of my family, I learned about AA and checked in to the alcohol de-addiction camp. It took a few years for me to become sober, and I have been this way ever since. I now dedicate my life to helping others who are in a bad place because of alcoholism. I work with them and show them that there is hope. They can get better. He stopped and opened the bag he was carrying. He rummaged in it for a few seconds and took a book out. He handed it to me. This is a book on AA and their 12 steps. They include apologizing to those we have hurt, helping others, and surrendering to God. I took the book from him, eager to read it. Auntie, I am ashamed of my past, but I am also proud that I could leave it behind me. My wife and mother have played an important role in bringing me back. I was amazed to learn so much. He had opened a new door for me. Please attend one AA meeting, Auntie, he said. There are two types of meetings, open and closed. Anyone can go for the open ones, while the closed gatherings are only for the members. Tomorrow there is an open session in Electronic City where I am the chairman. Chairman? I asked out loud. Yes, but not in the regular sense of the word. A chairman here is a mentor who shares his experience, the challenges of his journey, and the weak moments too. He also gives input to the members on how to conquer the desire of a few minutes so that the person can survive the hours to drink. I said, I would like to join you tomorrow. You have shared your story because you know me, but why will other people want to share their darkest moments with me? Once I have the other members' permission to let you in for an open session, then it will not be a problem. Most of them are willing to speak about it because now they recognize the problem and genuinely want to become sober. They don't know how to go about it, and that's where AA comes in, he explained patiently. Now that you are a mentor yourself, what about you? Whom do you speak to? He smiled and said, I continue to have a mentor and visit him weekly. I am human after all. The conversation took a different turn and we spoke about philosophy for some time. When the time came for him to leave, he said, see you tomorrow. I will text you the location of the church. Why are you meeting there? I am curious. I was curious. Auntie, where else can we meet? In a place like Bangalore, 30 of us cannot fit into an average sized living room. If we look for places on hire, then the payments have to be budgeted. And when we ask people to make an exception or allow us to use their facilities for minimal or no cost, they immediately refuse when they learn of the purpose. We were running out of places to meet, and so we approached a church. The management was kind enough to allow us to use a space in their premises. I thanked the church authorities in my head for comprehending human nature and allowing sins to be forgiven. It is the sense of life. They said we could donate whatever we could afford, but insisted that we keep the place clean. Why did they say that? Do people get their drinks there? I asked innocently. Auntie, come on, AA is about not drinking, and that's what the whole session is about. A lot of people who drink also smoke. If we consider drug addiction to be one of three brothers, then it is the worst of them all. Alcohol comes next, while smoking is the youngest of the three. The elder brother is usually accompanied by the two younger ones, while the middle brother almost always appears with the youngest. So we keep ashtrays on a table and clean up before we leave. Who funds these meetings? Can Infosys Foundation help? Thanks, Auntie, but A does not take help from anyone on that front, he replied. Soon Ramesh left. The next day I reached the venue, a Christian school at the assigned time. There was a small crowd of both men and women standing outside. The evening was fading away and night was almost upon us. Suddenly, I felt awkward. At times, being a writer has its negatives. What if someone questioned my presence? Why did she come? Is she going to write about us? Just then, Ramesh called me inside. He said that he wouldn't be taking the session that day. I entered the room and sat in a corner. It was a regular classroom with tables and benches. There were no DVDs overhead projector, or any fancy equipment. Within 5 minutes, the room was full. There were people of different ages and genders. Though the number of girls and women was less than the number of men, there were some foreigners too. A group of students entered and announced their presence before retreating to another corner of the room. No one paid any attention to me, but I still failed out of my depth. A middle aged person walked in firmly and greeted everyone. Then he sat down in the front facing us. He opened a book and read out the 12 steps that I had learned about the day before. I observed some faces looking tense and worried. After that was done, the chairman said, "Welcome to all fellow members, guests, and students. This is an open session today. I would like to share something good. Fellow Bharat, where are you?" A man in his 40s raised his hand. Bharat is completing his first birthday here. We will cut the cake at the end of the session. Everyone clapped. I didn't understand what was going on. What did the chairman mean by saying it was his first birthday? Our guests today may be a little surprised to see this celebration, but the first birthday is a very big deal. It means that Bharat hasn't had alcohol for a year now. So that's what it is, I thought. As a chairman, I will share my experience first. My initiation and drinking began in college under peer pressure. It was cool to drink, and I was proud to be in the party crowd. Over the next few years, I became an alcoholic. Still, I was able to land a job, find a good girl, and gain appreciation for my work. When I thought the time was right, I asked my girlfriend to marry me, but she refused. She said that I was drunk whenever she met me, irrespective of the time of the day. So I turned to the bottle even more, using my heartbreak as an excuse. One day, my parents finally said to me, "Grow up, the girl left you years ago and is now the mother of two children, and yet here you are, still drinking your life away. This has nothing to do with her and everything to do with you. You are an alcoholic. We are ready to help you get your life back on track, but you must realize what you have become." I was livid. How dare they label me an alcoholic? I could quit drinking whenever I wanted to. I was the one in control, so I didn't drink for the next 2 days and thought that I had proved myself. On the third day, my parents wanted to go to a temple nearby and offered to drive them there. I had a quick shower in the evening, shaved, and applied an aftershave lotion. I looked good. A short time later, we left for the temple. While driving, my tongue touched my skin briefly and it tasted of the aftershave lotion. I kept licking it, and by the time we reached the temple, I was craving for a drink. I dropped my parents, went to the closest bar, and stayed there for 4 hours. Unaware of my actions, my poor parents performed a puja for me at the temple, waited for me, then took an auto rickshaw and went back home. That was my turning point. It was the day I realized that I couldn't live without booze. So I came to AA and they helped me vocalize what I was. It was here that I found other people like me, and I was glad that I wasn't alone in this. Our slogan is "I can't, we can." The chairman looked straight at the crowd in front of him. "If you would like to stay and be with us, please do so. You are always welcome here. People who think that this isn't the place for them, let me tell you that there is a bar on the opposite side of the street. Feel free to leave." He paused, waiting for people to exit. One person did, but a turtle space. Then he said, "Only an alcoholic can understand another fellow alcoholic. Nobody is going to judge you here. I invite you to share your experience or thoughts." By then, the environment felt very informal and I didn't feel awkward anymore. A young lady sitting on one of the benches introduced herself. "I am Ravina, alcoholic," she said. "Hi, Ravina, alcoholic," responded the other members. "I come from an affluent family where social drinking was a part of our culture. My parents studied in France and hence frequently discussed wine and its various characteristics. I was introduced to wine at the age of 16, but the quantity was restricted. The next year, I went to college in Delhi, and my parents headed to the Middle East for a financially exciting job opportunity. I stayed back in residential hostel where I met girls who frequently drank hard liquor such as vodka and whiskey. At first, they made fun of me and asked me to try what they were having, so I began experimenting and came to love other drinks too. My parents used to send me a monthly allowance then. Whenever they asked me about my spending, I would conceal my expenses on alcohol. Lying came naturally to me once I started it, and I barely felt guilty about it over time. There comes the fourth brother, I thought. Around the time of my graduation, I went to a bar and met a boy. We got along like a house on fire and spent a lot of time learning about each other and our habits. We disclosed our relationship to our parents, who approved of the match, and we had a lavish wedding. Following the North Indian tradition, there was plenty of wine and liquor on the day of the reception, and the guests drank as much as possible since it was free. After the wedding, my husband and I shifted to Bangalore. We would sit and drink together every day after he turned from work, but he noticed that I could drink more than him. I needed more than two pegs to get high, and I didn't puke afterwards or get a headache immediately either. I thought it was a great quality and that I must push myself farther. Suddenly, Ravina's voice softened. Weeks later, I learned that I was pregnant and went to a gynecologist. I didn't tell her about the alcohol. Uh, During the third month of pregnancy, I felt very uneasy in the area around my stomach and went to see her again. As a part of the routine checkup, she asked me, Are you drinking alcohol? Perhaps wine? Wine? I said, concealing the hard liquor. I was still drowning every week now or every now and then. Stop it. I tried to, but I couldn't control myself. Doctors are extra careful about these things, I thought. A ship here and there isn't going to harm the baby. So I poured myself some vodka and orange juice the very next day and continued to drink with my husband. 9 months later, a baby boy was born, and our families were, like ecstatic. Everybody celebrated with wine and champagne in our house, but it wasn't enough for me. I needed more. Taking care of a newborn was much more exhausting than I had thought. When the parents had retired for the night to their bedrooms, I went to the minibar in the dining room and drank vodka. A year passed and my son grew up quickly. I noticed that his milestones were delayed and ran to the doctor. Within a month, it was confirmed my son was a slow learner and would remain so. The doctor remarked, I hope you were not drinking during the pregnancy. That hit home. The drinking hadn't harmed me, but it had labeled my child special. He had done nothing to deserve this, and yet he was the one paying for my sins. I could not excuse myself and felt like ending my life, but the thought of my son prevented me from taking a step farther. If I wasn't around, who would look after him? What does his future hold? My husband and I didn't blame each other but ourselves. We took strength from each other and decided to quit drinking. It was very hard and we kept failing at our attempts. We ended up drinking in the evenings just like we used to before. Thankfully, we found AA, and now that's the time I keep for my meetings. The withdrawal was painful and difficult. Once the evening is past, I am more in control and I return home. My son's face is a stark reminder of why I must never touch a drink again. Why did God make such an addictive thing on earth? Her voice shook with the emotions that she kept bottled inside her. I'm scared to have another baby. What if I get another child like my son? The chairman stepped in. Thank you, Ravina, alcoholic, for sharing your personal story. People come to AA when they reach the lowest point in their lives. That point differs from person to person. We had one teenager who once asked his mother for money to buy alcohol. When she refused to part with it, he pushed her and damaged her leg. In time, she developed a limp. It was an eternal reminder to the son about how he had hurt her, and it became his turning point. Once people desperately desire a change in the most honest way possible, they come here because we can help them make it happen. Next, a well dressed, middle aged man in the front row introduced himself. He said, I am Harry, alcoholic, and belong to a wealthy family. I have no excuse. I got the habit because I enjoy drinking with my friends. Since my father had his own business, I decided to join him after my graduation and fell in love with one of the, secretaries named Maria. She learned of my weaknesses and about the drinking too. As time passed, we seriously began thinking of marriage. I want you to quit drinking, she told me. With God's grace and love, you will leave it, I'm sure. At first, my parents were hesitant about the match, but soon they took to Maria and we had a big fat wedding. Still, I continued to drink. 2 years later, my mother and father died in a crash, and I was the only one to inherit all that they had built. I managed the office, and Maria managed everything at home, including the finances. We also had a beautiful baby girl, and life was wonderful, yet my habit continued. When Maria spoke to me about it, I didn't heed her words. Every day I would ask her for money to spend at the bar. One day she put her foot down. No, you wouldn't get any more money for this. I decided to marry you in the hope that you would improve, and because I loved you. You were the same despite becoming a father. I became so upset that I abused her verbally and told her that the money was mine and that she had no right over it. With tears in her eyes, she handed me some money and I rushed to the bar. The next morning, I felt bad and apologized to her. I'm so sorry, Maria. I was wrong. I will never do it again. But I did again and again. One day, the same incident repeated itself and Maria refused to give me money. I saw my daughter playing on the side and yelled at Maria with hate. If you don't give me what I want, I will do something to the baby and then you will regret it. I was in complete rage. That is the only reason I said it. I loved my daughter more than my life. But Maria turned pale. She probably thought I meant it. She brought out all the money she had and handed it to me. Take it, she said, and walked out of the room with my daughter. I took all the money, called a few friends, and went to a popular bar that I frequented and whose owner I knew. People would often join me there and praise my gracious nature because I paid for everyone's drinks. But in my heart, I was still mad at Maria. I wanted to show her that I was not a hen-picked husband, so I drank more than usual that day. The owner allowed me to crash in a room above the bar because I wasn't in any state to walk or drive. When I came home the next morning, there was a note on the fridge. It was a handwritten note from Maria. I am leaving with my daughter. You will never change. You may have ruined my life, but I don't want my daughters to be ruined too with a drunk man for a father. I looked around the apartment. All their clothes were gone, but I knew she would come back. To forget my domestic problems, I began drinking even more. Maria, however, didn't turn up at all. Weeks turned into months and months into years. I didn't know where she was anymore. Within a few years, I lost everything, my business and my properties. Now, the owner of that same popular bar instructed the bouncers not to let me in without money. My friends forgot about me too. It got worse and I began begging at traffic lights. All the money I got went into buying and consuming desi liquor. One day I sat at a traffic signal and thought that I saw Maria in one of the cabs with a child. When I went closer, I realized that it really was her, along with my daughter. Excited, I knocked at the car window. She, however, dismissed me with a wave of her hand. Never talk to strangers, she said to our daughter. Look at this dirty man begging here instead of working somewhere. She didn't recognize me. Before I could find any words, the light turned green and the car sped away. That was the lowest point in my life. I had lost my wife, daughter, and what my parents and grandparents had built for me. My family had had a humble beginning. My grandfather had come from Kolar to Bangalore city as a clerk, worked very hard and saved money to start his own business. It took decades for him to officially reach the rich status. His name was Harry, and I had been named after him. But look at me. I had squandered away all his wealth and become a beggar. I wanted to commit suicide right there and then. I don't remember how, but someone took me to an open AA session in a church, and for the first time in many years, I felt a ray of hope. I heard people talking about their darkest times. They were people like me who had lost everything and then gone on to build a decent life for themselves. Maybe I could try too. It's been 15 years since then, and I have been sober for a long time. Now I spend my life in service to others like me by bringing them to AA and helping them on their journey. The applause in the room was followed by a deafening silence, each of us busy with our own thoughts. His daughter must be working now and maybe married too, I thought. His wife is a brave woman. She made the right decision for herself and the child. But what a life they have all led. Everyone has suffered a lifetime because of alcohol addiction. I didn't know if alcoholism was a formally recognized medical disease, but AA was a boon for the people it served. Coffee was served in paper cups for all of us, and a stringed purse and a round medal was circulated. The chairman announced you can contribute only if you are AA members. We don't accept money from others. A few contributed, and most of the members took the medal, held it close to their heart, and prayed. At last, the chairman invited Bharat to come and cut the cake. We have also invited Bharat's family today because he wouldn't have reached this milestone without them, he said. With pride, Bharat blew out the lone candle on it and cut the cake. Then he thanked his family profusely along with the people in AA who had given him back his life. His father then handed him a medal. He was speechless, choked with emotion. After he had composed himself, he said, Bharat is my only child and I have celebrated many events with him, including his birthdays and weddings, but today is his real birthday. For a long time I was ashamed to have a son like him, but he has changed and I am proud of as a father. Bharat smiled and patted his father's shoulder and looked at a small gathering with gratitude. An alcoholic is an alcoholic forever, he said. I cannot take any medicines with alcoholic content, not even a spoonful of cough syrup when I am unwell, but I am happy with where I am right now, and I promise I will continue to celebrate such birthdays every year. I glanced at Bharat's wife who stood nearby. It had been no cakewalk for her with the kind of pressure society often forces on Indian women. She had had a troublesome marriage without true companionship and was still standing beside her husband. A few minutes later, the meeting got over and people started leaving. I also stood up and Ramesh accompanied me to the car waiting outside. Does everyone reach sobriety? I asked Ramesh. It depends, auntie. There are chances of relapsing. That's why we meet regularly to keep our urges in control. Even now, when I see an alcohol ad or a drinking scene in a movie on television, I switch off. I don't go to any wedding that serves liquor. It is very easy to fall off the wagon. Surrendering to God, which is one of the steps in AA, is very helpful. God doesn't mean a specific religious one. Everyone has a God within themselves. It simply means a higher power. In AA, we have the freedom of choosing our God. It is a great organization, and Bangalore alone has 80 centers. AA operates in 186 countries. Auntie, no wonder our ancestors were intelligent. They told us to keep away from bad habits. It may start as social drinking, but unfortunately, some get hooked to it. And once they are hooked, their life becomes miserable. If they had not tried it in the first place, they would not have become alcoholics. I sat in the car and thought about the famous Marathi play Ekak Pala, Ekaj Pela, a popular drama of the 1940s, and another one called Devadas, which is a play about a man who, as people like to believe, turned to the bottle because he could not marry Paru, the love of his life. But the truth is that he was simply an alcoholic. In the Marathi play, the protagonist, Sudhakar, and his wife, Sindhu, are a happy couple. One day, an alcoholic friend insists that Sudhakar should drink one sip of alcohol to celebrate an event. He even offers him a peg. Sindhu objects to her husband's drinking, who mocks her. Oh, Sindhu, don't worry. Our life sip will not drown with one peg. Unfortunately, her husband likes the taste and in time becomes a slave to alcohol. The play shows how their life is ruined. The first peg is enough to get you on the journey if you have a tendency towards alcoholism. Unfortunately, nobody can predict until you try that first glass. Who says money is the ultimate goal of life? It is not. You will find out when the time is right. One of life's goals is the ability to understand human nature and raise a fellow being from rock bottom to becoming a useful member of society. We all lose a few battles in our lives, but we can win the war. There is always hope. Thank you. Thank you for being patient and listening to this beautiful story along with me. I hope you like it, and if you do, please don't forget to like, share, and let me know in the comment section below what is your thoughts on it and what kind of books do you like me to read out for you next time. Soon I will be coming with another story for you. Till then, stay happy and stay blessed. And again, I'm saying that I'm really very sorry for the noises and the sounds that are occurring again and again during the time of reading. So please forgive me for this. Thank you.